It was the day Sarah had been waiting for her whole life, her wedding day. The venue was exquisite, adorned with roses, twinkling lights, and soft music playing in the background. The atmosphere was filled with love and excitement. Sarah had always dreamed of this day, and now it was finally here. Her friends and family surrounded her, congratulating her, and everything seemed perfect. But as Sarah prepared to walk down the aisle, there was a feeling in her chest that she couldn't quite shake. It wasn't nerves, it was something else. Every time she looked over at her stepmother, Claire, she noticed a strange look in her eyes. Claire, who had been Sarah's stepmother since she was a child, had always been a bit distant but polite. They never had the close relationship Sarah had hoped for, but she never imagined there was anything more to it. As Sarah's father adjusted her veil and smiled proudly at his daughter, Sarah couldn't help but notice how cold Claire seemed. She had spent the last few weeks preparing for the wedding, but her stepmother's behavior had always been off, strained, almost as if something was wrong. Every time Sarah had asked Claire for help, she had been brushed off with a curt reply or a vague excuse. Ignoring the unsettling feeling, Sarah tried to focus on the joy of the moment. She was about to marry the love of her life, Ethan, a man who had stood by her side through thick and thin. But the nagging sense of unease lingered, making her wonder, was there something she was missing? Little did she know, the shocking truth was about to unfold, and her dream wedding would soon turn into a nightmare. The ceremony began, and Sarah made her way down the aisle, smiling at Ethan, who stood at the altar with tears in his eyes. But as she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Claire's eyes followed her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. What was going on? Why did Claire seem so tense? Just as Sarah took her place beside Ethan, her stepmother's eyes flashed with something that felt like a secret she had been hiding for years. A strange sense of dread started to grow in Sarah's chest. Something wasn't right. The ceremony continued, and Sarah tried to push away the discomfort she felt, focusing on Ethan, the love of her life. The vows were exchanged, and everything seemed to flow smoothly, but deep down, Sarah's heart pounded. She couldn't shake the feeling that Claire was hiding something important. After the ceremony, the reception was held in a beautiful ballroom, filled with laughter, dancing, and the clinking of glasses. But for Sarah, the joy of the evening was clouded by the strange behavior of her stepmother. Claire kept her distance from Sarah, avoiding any interaction, even as they mingled with guests. Sarah tried to approach her a few times, but each time Claire seemed to slip away, pretending to be busy with something else. As Sarah danced with Ethan, she noticed Claire whispering to a few family members at the edge of the room. She couldn't make out the words, but the way they were looking at her made Sarah feel like a puppet in the middle of a play she didn't understand. The evening was going on, and Sarah's unease was growing. Finally, just as Sarah was about to sit down for a moment of rest, Claire approached her. Her face was stiff, her eyes flickering with an emotion Sarah couldn't quite place. Sarah tried to smile, but it felt forced. "Sarah, can we talk for a moment?" Claire asked, her voice strangely calm, but there was an undercurrent of tension. "Of course," Sarah replied, confused but willing to listen. She followed Claire into a quieter area of the ballroom, away from the crowd. Claire took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them together. "I've been meaning to tell you something for a while now," Claire began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something you need to know, something that might change everything." Sarah's stomach twisted with anxiety. What was Claire talking about? I didn't want to ruin your day," Claire continued, her eyes avoiding Sarah's. "But now I see there's no other way." Suddenly, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The room seemed to grow quieter, the laughter from the party muffled. Claire's eyes met hers, and in that moment, Sarah saw a flicker of something darker, something hidden deep within her stepmother's gaze. Claire exhaled slowly, and then, with an unsettling calmness, she spoke the words that would turn Sarah's world upside down. You were never supposed to be here, Sarah. This wedding was never meant to happen. Sarah's heart stopped. What do you mean? Claire paused, and for the first time that night, Sarah saw the raw emotion in her stepmother's eyes, resentment, fear, and a deep regret. Claire's voice trembled as she revealed the truth that would shatter everything Sarah believed about her family. I didn't want to tell you this today, but I have to. The truth is, I poisoned your mother. Sarah's world tilted. The room spun around her, and for a moment, she could barely breathe. Her stepmother, the woman she had known all her life, the woman who had been a distant but constant presence in her home, had just confessed to the unthinkable. Poisoned her mother? Sarah's mind couldn't process the words. Claire, seeing Sarah's disbelief, took a step closer, her face twisting in regret. I never wanted you to know, Sarah. But now you have to understand, your mother's death wasn't an accident. It was me. Sarah stumbled back, her heart hammering in her chest. No, that's not possible. You're lying. Why would you do that? Claire's eyes were hollow, filled with a mixture of guilt and sorrow. She slowly sat down, her hands clasped tightly together. I was jealous of her, Sarah. I wanted your father for myself, and I couldn't bear to see her taking his attention. I thought if she was out of the way, I could have everything. Your father, the house, the life, it was selfish, I know. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, her legs shaking beneath her. This was the woman who had raised her, the one who had always seemed so cold but never cruel. How could this be true? How could the woman who stood before her now be the same one who had once pretended to care for her mother? But why tell me now? Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. Why on my wedding day? Why destroy this for me? Claire's face twisted in anguish. I've lived with the guilt every day, Sarah. And when I saw you, so happy with Ethan, it was like a cruel reminder of what I had taken from you. I didn't want you to start your life, your future, with this lie hanging over us. I thought maybe if I told you the truth, you could finally understand why things have been so complicated between us. Sarah's mind raced, her thoughts a storm of confusion and pain. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but something in her held her back. She felt like she was drowning in the weight of this revelation. The mother she had loved and lost, the life she had built with her father, it was all built on a lie. But how do you expect me to forgive you? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. How do you expect me to live with this knowledge? Claire's eyes filled with tears. I don't expect forgiveness, Sarah. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know the truth. I was wrong, and I've been living with this for far too long. It's the only thing I can give you now, honesty. The silence between them stretched for what felt like an eternity. Sarah wanted to run, to leave the room, to escape the harsh reality that had just shattered her life. But she couldn't. She was trapped in this moment, in this truth. Your father never knew, Claire added softly. He never knew what I did. I made sure he never found out. He's always loved you, and he'll never understand the truth either. But I couldn't live with the lies anymore. Sarah stood frozen, her mind trying to piece together the broken shards of her family's history. How could she ever look at her father the same way again? Could she ever find a way to forgive Claire for what she had done to her mother? With a heavy heart, Sarah turned and walked away. There were too many questions left unanswered, too much pain to process. But one thing was clear. Her life, her wedding day, and her family had been irrevocably changed forever. And as she stepped back into the reception hall, The weight of the truth hung heavy in the air, a secret that would forever alter her path.